Great planning. Woo!
Well, I can show it to you from this so that you can at least see it, but it'd be so cool if it would be up there. Okay, while we're getting ready to see this, I inform all of us and those that are online that we are now, that's what I want right there. Okay. Okay, we're 8 weeks away from this, and I know I've already said that once, but we are in a weekly deal where every single week for the next 8 weeks, we'll be talking about various things: culture, vision, expectations, team. Somewhere in here we'll switch and we'll actually go to the venue. We'll pray in the venue. We'll get to walk around it and all that, but it will be under construction from tomorrow to, hopefully, bless God, August 25th. August 25th is when we're supposed to have it. Yeah, that would be terrible. Is there a way to do it or no?
No, because
Okay.
computer's dead.
Then I'll show it to you from
Unless
here.
anybody has a computer.
And then you can look at it multiple times after we do all this if y'all want to check it out.
Okay, so here is a rendering of the space. Oh man, I'm making you guys wait. Okay, so this is a 3D rendering of the space. You've got your Vivid Church mats on the floor there. Those are necessary. This will seat 80 people to where we have it here. I've got it to where we can seat 109. There's your stage, your screen on the back wall. Yep. Han Solo is playing the guitar for anybody who's interested in that. Yeah. And then we have 2 kids' rooms, so kids have a unique sort of role in this space. So there's 2 kids' rooms and 2 bathrooms to finish it all out. But there it is. That's the whole thing. So I know that's like so hard to see, but that's the best we can do right now. So
We'll have the iPad available for y'all to look at it.
yeah.
We can post it on the Facebook group.
Yeah, and we can also text it around the room. And I think a few of us may have it and text it to each other around the room. Okay, so if you could, if you have a phone, if you have a laptop, if you have a pen and paper, whatever it takes and whatever you've got, if you would pull that out, because this is something I do want us to take some notes on, because I want to open our time with this topic of culture. So this is not really like a sermon, but this is the things that we're striving for, okay, when it comes to culture. So I feel like it's extremely important that everybody get this and understand that these are the things that we're trying to hit. So by writing it down and taking it in and putting it on paper or in notes digitally, you have a great chance of going back to it in the weeks to come and in the months to follow. So every organization has a culture. Every church does, every business does, every company does, every nation does. Everything has a cultural aspect to it. And I want to lean into this idea of culture because culture is a really ethereal, nebulous word, and I want to define it. Merriam-Webster did the job for us. But what is culture? Culture is simply this: the customary beliefs, social norms, and material traits of a social group and the characteristic features of everyday existence shared by the people in a time or place in that group. That's just a wild definition of culture, but culture is what we all expect and
manifestations of human intellectual achievement.
She said, I'll tell you.
I thought it was one of y'all at first. I couldn't hear it because it was on my watch. That's scary. Okay. And culture is so important. A lot of us like to talk, especially in church circles. I know lots of us have been in these church circles where we like to preach vision and talk vision and look down the road and future and vision. And Dr. Sam Chan, who is a consultant in the business and church world, says this: culture eats vision for lunch. So you can preach and teach, I want this and here's what I see, but culture, how we behave, how we act, how we show up, what we do as a group will completely cancel out culture. And it will negate it, because you could say, I see this and I want that, but how we all behave and ascribe to something depends on if we're going to get there. So culture eats vision for lunch. And so culture is a mix of two things. Culture is a combination of what you create and what you allow. And here's the unfortunate part about culture, most unfortunate for me than it is for you. You do not know that you have broken culture until you break it. You don't realize that that decision, that action, that behavior, that choice is against the culture more often than not until you do something that is against or breaks the culture. Does that make sense? So Dr. Sam Chan says he came to America. He's from India. Came to America from India in the 70s, I think. And when he gets on the plane, he's going to go to a school in, I think, Georgia. And so he's got a scholarship to go. It's this private Christian university. And when he gets on the plane and flies over there, for whatever reason, the plane was not able for him to go and use the bathroom. And so he's on the plane and he really has to go, and he can't go. And as soon as the plane touches down, he gets off the plane, walks down the steps, gets through the airport. And at that time, you could actually meet your guest at the terminal. So you could walk all the way beyond TSA and you could meet them at the gate. So he walks them through the gate. And Dr. Sam Chan, being from India, not understanding American culture, as soon as he meets the dean of this university who's picking him up, he says, I have to take a... And the dean of students looks at him and goes, I'm sorry, what'd you say? And he said, so me thinking he didn't hear me, I figure I have to really enforce it. So I tell him, I have to take, right, fill in the blank. And he looked at me kind of funny, he said, and walked me to the bathroom. And outside the bathroom, he said, hey, I know you're from India, so you may not know this. That's probably a word in India that you just state when you have to go poop, okay? And that's fine over there, and I'm really not offended, but I just need you to know over here, that's probably going to be looked down upon if you say that to somebody that's your greeting. My point is, Dr. Sam Chan didn't realize the cultural expectations and norms of America because he lived in India. And so when he takes a flight and he comes over here in his first time, he says something that he thinks is culturally acceptable, and what happens? He finds out I broke culture, and I now realize that that is not allowed. Culture is a combination of what you create and what you allow, meaning no one ever knows when they've broken culture until they break culture, right? So that's why it's so important to craft it and make sure that we're all on the same page for what what it is that we want to create in the culture of Vivid Church. Because every church has a culture, and it is very important that we are intentional at the outset to craft it and mold it to what we want it to be. Culture starts with what you value. What you value determines the culture of a team. And so tonight I want to work through what we value. And with that, I'm going to go and do a couple of things. There was 4,000 business leaders polled, and they polled these business leaders saying, what do you think you need to get better at in your entire job? And there's all this list of things and all these different ideas they could choose and select from. And as it came back, all of the business leaders said there was two things they needed to get better at: finances and technology. Craig Rochelle gave that talk to talk about the poll that was given, and then he said they decided, whoever polled the businessmen, that they would poll the employees and find out what the business guys needed to get better at and see if they matched, or if there was a discrepancy between what the leaders needed to get better at and what they were thinking they needed to get better at, and what the employees looking at them said they needed to get better at. None of them mentioned two things: finances or technology. They mentioned that the leaders need to get better in two areas: leadership and emotional intelligence. Those two things defined in a question would be: leadership, where are you taking me? Emotional intelligence is, how are you treating me? That idea, when answered, and they needed to get better at those two things, began to craft and obviously create a culture. I'm sure you've all heard it said, but people don't leave bad jobs, they leave bad bosses. That's what they walk away from. Anybody can do a pretty terrible job as long as the relationship with who they're working with is pretty secure and acceptable. But when they feel like there's such a chasm, or they're treated so poorly, and all of those things are not led very well, it's very predictable that they will eventually walk away. So, here's what I want to talk about in our culture. If culture is values that we're all ascribing to, here's what's interesting about this to me. This blows me away. Okay? Values are nothing more than hopeful thinking and ascribing to something that I don't naturally hit every day when I wake up. Because it's a value that I'm trying to reach for. And here's what I tell myself: that there's some things that I have to zoom out from Alan's personality and go, I want Vivid Church and the team therein to hold certain values, and I could give a rip if I'm good at them or not. The organization's bigger than me. My job is to create the values that all of us may or may not be good at, including me. But then to hold us to the standard that these values are what we value. And if I'm not good at that, that does not matter to me or to God. Have you ever actually had one full day of your life where you lived like Jesus from sunup to sundown? But yet you value becoming like him, Christian, Christ-like. I value walking like Jesus, living like Jesus, loving like Jesus. I may never hit that for a whole year straight. I'd be really excited if I got that far. Do you see what I'm saying? The whole idea of Christianity is a value that's hovering above us that we're all reaching for. Knowing that every step of the way, I'm not going to be Jesus. I'll still deal with sin, and I'll still deal with something inside of me, but I still ascribe to it enough to where I want to reach for it. Here's what I'm saying. And though this might sound harsh, I want to flip it on you so that you can internalize it yourself. If these things aren't naturally good for you to live out, I don't care. It's not about if your personality reaches the values or not, because by admission, mine don't. And any organization that has values, we're all trying to reach it collectively and together. So though there are certain things that we may not be good at naturally, that doesn't mean that you don't try and produce effort to get better at those things, because they are, all together, they are values. 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 We'll get better. I would like a repeat after me culture, so I value that. Okay, so the first value for a cultural team, and here's the way I phrased it. I had a conversation in the last week or so where someone asked me, what do you see the team and the staff and the volunteer force at Vivid Church looking like in 3 to 5 years from now? So describe that to me. I described it, and then they said, that's not good enough. I need you to get that down to 3 words, 3 specific words, so that you can distill it into a much more palpable level. And those 3 words, after I tailored it and tried to wordsmith it, it's not perfect yet, which I struggle with because I like to present this as if it's gridlocked, but it's not. Those 3 things are what I'm going to give you now. That I see Vivid Church team, volunteer force, and staff exhibiting in 3 to 5 years from now that we will ascribe to. And the first is simply, very, very simple. First one is that we will value people. I know that doesn't sound big, but that's actually very, very hard to do, like on a consistent interaction basis. So John Maxwell, everybody know who that is a little bit? Okay, he says that he bookends his day with 2 questions. In the morning he wakes up and he says, who can I add value to today and how can I do it? And then when he lays his head down at night, he asks himself another question, who did I add value to today and how did I do it? Because I would assess that if the first part was true, that the reason people leave jobs is for bad bosses, it's probably true that they leave them because they did not feel valued. And so for me, if all the law, Christianity, Jesus says, if all the law hangs on 2 commands, to love God and to love others, then for me, the value that we will have is to love people and to value people. There's 3 ways primarily I feel like that you express value. And because I'm a preacher, they all start with A. Attention, affirmation, and appreciation. Attention, affirmation, and appreciation. A heart to care and a person who values another person gives them their attention. They give them a listening ear. They give them a loving heart. They give to them their presence, okay? That's just one step of how you value people. You feel very devalued if you're having a conversation and you intuitively know that for whatever reason, that person is so distracted they're not hearing anything that you said. And you could probably say to them in the conversation, because they're so distracted, yeah, then an evil snowman came over last night and ate my daughter. And they would be like, it's awesome, man, cool. And you're like, yeah, you literally didn't hear anything I said. Okay, so as simple as it is, a value that we ascribe to is that we value people. How do you value people? You start by just giving them your attention. Gary Vee, somebody I think is phenomenal in a lot of ways, says that the number 1 commodity on planet Earth is attention. And whoever captures the attention of the mass group of people at any one time has monopolized a business, monetized a business out of it, and they are making a lot of money because the number 1 commodity that any of us have to give is attention, which is shown in time. So if you look at screen time on your phone of how long you spent last week, and you know it goes up in percentage and down in percentage, you know, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter have your attention. And they are billion-dollar companies, meaning I just want to elevate to your awareness and consciousness. Your attention is extremely valuable. So somebody feels valued when you give it to them. Make sense?
Yeah.
Value people. Cultural value number one for Vivid. We give it by giving others our attention. The second one is affirmation. Affirmation is one of the biggest, if not the most important way that people actually feel valued. I think these two kind of go hand in hand. If you give somebody your attention, the next thing in the chain is a way to encourage or affirm them. And me and Amanda have talked about this before. I know there's a few of us who have been to a church in Dallas called the Oaks Church. Brandon and Steffi were there with us. When I think about the culture of the Oaks, and I think about who they are as people, Pastor Scott, who has been the lead pastor of the Oaks for the last 30 years or something, he's actually coming here to speak September 19th at our Friends and Family service, and you will probably feel and understand the force of Pastor Scott Wilson. But what we talked and said, when we go there, you're in the room with him or any of the staff, and you feel like you are worth $1 million. They make you feel like you're the only person in the room, and he will affirm you and love you and value you to a level that you feel like nobody else can. And here's what's crazy. When we've been there, they have invited us into meetings that we have no business being in because they're just that welcoming, that warm, that inviting, and they really do value people. I think of that culture. I don't know if there's ever been a church or an organization or a company or a room that you've walked into where you feel that, where you're like, golly, they really do love me. I think that comes through affirmation. So here's what I want us to focus on in this, to maybe distill it a little deeper, because that's all kind of emotional, feely stuff. Affirmation. Affirmation. Craig Rochelle says this: you need to affirm people more than you think you should. So more than you think you should, to where it's uncomfortable. Then double it, and you're close. Because at a level, it becomes so like, oh my gosh. Like, that feels so good. And I think we're void of a lot of that right now. Like, the words of America are just hitting really harshly in so many different ways. And I think a lot of people don't feel valued. So nobody's giving them their attention, and everybody's just screaming a thing right now, and they're not listening to each other. And so because of that, no one's getting affirmed. Everybody's getting completely criticized for anything and everything that you could imagine. And I think that the way to shore that up is to affirm one another. I'm so grateful. I'm so thankful for you. I'm so appreciative of your gifts. Building each other up in this way is how you value people. And then lastly, appreciation, which is kind of the advanced version, I think, of affirmation, because to show appreciation can come through in gifts, it can come through in meals, it can come through in various ways, time spent with somebody out, but to appreciate them is so important. And so we did this at the church I was at last based off of Life Church, and Craig Rochelle has this idea where he goes to his staff, which they have like 350 different staffers, I think once a month on Fridays, and he calls it Gold Star Fridays. And he goes around, that's his day off, and he takes maybe an hour or so, hour and a half, and he told his team, I need you to find me something on Amazon that's like a little trinket that we're going to call a gold star. And it started with just fist bumps, and he'd go around, his whole office space and fist bump. Man, I appreciate you. You're killing it. You're crushing it. I appreciate it. I appreciate what you do. Da 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 da. And everybody loved the fist bump thing, and he upgraded it to a gold star. And so he goes around the office and he hands them this little trinket. To the best, it looks like a fuzzy ball. Like it looks like a little gold fuzzy ball. Pom-pom, yeah, like it's this little thing. I mean, it couldn't, a whole package of 500 was probably $30. I mean, you know. And he passed them around and he says that people love Gold Star Friday so much that they've met me in the parking lot going, oh, Pastor, I was in the bathroom and I didn't get my Gold Star. Can I have it? Can I? Because they feel so appreciated. Same idea, and I'll finish with this illustration to show you about appreciation and rewarding people and loving people. If you've ever seen the NFL, anybody just watched a game or two enough to know and look at the helmets of football players. If you've ever looked at the helmet of a football player, usually those helmets, when they turn, especially in college football, are covered with stickers. You ever noticed that? There are these little decals, and if you've ever looked at one of the teams who has a player whose their whole helmet is covered in stickers, more so than anybody else, you might wonder what that means. Those little stickers are the coaches appreciating those players. And those stickers are the size of a quarter. And they hold inherent value. And the team knows that if they do a practice to 100%, they run the wind sprints and want to die at the end of it. If they lift and work out, if they're on time, if they prep well, all the right things, then they'll get a sticker. You will have a 340-pound lineman who will run through a freaking brick wall for a sticker. Because there's something in us that wants to be valued. There's something in us that wants to be appreciated. There's something in us that wants to be noticed. There's something in us that wants to be acknowledged. And when we give people our attention, our affirmation, our appreciation, they walk away feeling valued. And that, to me, if we can create a culture where that's the only value we have, and they're like, so what is Vivid Church all about? Man, I'm telling you, we get with it when we love God, but I'll tell you what, we value people. What else? That's it. I think I'd be happy. Like if we failed out on everything else and everybody said, man, I can tell you they're just like way out there in organization and they can't do anything right or whatever, but by God, if you want to feel loved, you visit Vivid Church and you'll walk away like, I mean, you are worth trillions to them. I think I'd be okay with that. So for me, my heart, who I am, all of that, I want to make people feel really good. I want to, even as me, and like I said, it started with this. That doesn't mean I get this right all the time, but I want to aspire to this level of valuing people to the best of my ability because I feel like that's the heart of Jesus. That he is a person who valued people to such a high level that it was offensive. It was offensive because he valued people of different walks and faiths and lives and all of these things. And I don't have time to get into all the scripture of it, but I just want to let you know the reason I want to value valuing people is because I feel like that's the first thing I notice that Jesus does. And as a church, obviously, we want people to feel more of that, to grasp how deep and wide and long and high is his love. They will know who Jesus is by us. Those are direct words of Jesus. He looks at his disciples and says, they will know that you are my disciples by how you love one another. And you may have heard a service close out like that, love one another, by a pastor or something. That's referencing that verse. They will know, all those people will know that you are my disciples by how you love them. That's a premium on valuing people. Valuing people. Cultural value number one. Okay. 2 more and then we're done tonight. Because this could go, this could go forever. They won't be as long. They won't be as long because there's just not as much to say on them. When I think about our team and I think about our church, I think about a staff and a volunteer force and all of those things, I see people who are, second word, passionate. Passionate. Passion is like massive for me. This is something that you give. This is a request I have for you. Some people are like, well, I'm not very extroverted. I'm not talking about extrovert, introvert. Passion is something that when you think about it and you dwell on it and you wake up wanting to do it better and you go to bed thinking about how to get up the next day and do it better again, I would start saying you're probably passionate about the thing that you're thinking about. Passion transforms a job into a calling, into a, oh my gosh, I can't help but just devote myself to this. I don't want anybody to ever volunteer and give of themselves at Vivid with a miserable look on their face. Please don't do that. Don't. Just, go home. Go home. If it's not, I don't want everybody to be like, God, man, you know what we got to do? Tomorrow we got to show up to the church at freaking 6 a.m, man. It's okay. No, you don't. Go find something else that where you're like, my God, I'm not even going to sleep tonight. I'm just going to all-nighter it. I'm going to get there at 5 a.m. because I cannot wait. I want to do this thing. I am so excited to greet people at the door because I just freaking love it so much. I can't wait to lead worship because I love it so much. I can't wait to teach those kids about Jesus and God and the Holy Spirit because I just value them and love them so much. I love this thing. I can't wait to see all the people, to wave and greet. I cannot wait because I just love to be in this role, this thing, because I'm passionate about it. That is a value that we have to elevate and go, we want passionate people who are constantly saying, this is what I want to be a part of. I'm all for hobbies and all those things, but church and ministry is not a hobby. I don't like, and I hobby church. It's just not the culture I want, where it's like, I part-time, that's my hobby is church. No, I am the church, and I get to help people, I get to help people get to come to know the Lord by serving in this role, in this way, in this thing, and that excites me. This is best displayed in an example through Bethel. Bethel is a church in California, and they launched a school last year that blew me away, okay? Kirby, Zach, y'all are into more technological things than I am. But I saw a video, sponsored, come across while I'm in Visalia, and I'm watching this thing, and they literally started a wing of their School of Leadership, wait for it, for professional web coders to make websites and to go in the back end and program binary code. And these guys on camera are going, and I just love that. I'm making a difference in technology for the cause of Christ. Who? What? What? I don't know the first thing about ones and zeros behind the scene, and I'm like, that guy is passionate about the behind the scenes, technological, you don't get to see behind that curtain. And Bethel valued that and those people to the point where they started a whole school. They're going to lead people to Jesus by programming code into a computer. But they do it because they're passionate about it. That's what I'm saying. Whether it's tying your shoes or standing up in front of people to preach, whatever it is, just be passionate about that thing. And at the starting point, I'd say this. Be passionate about this church. Because chances are good that we will all have to serve in something that might not strike us to the level of our giftedness there. But if you're passionate about the vision and you're passionate about the church, you'll be able to step into that role and still deliver some amount of passion so that you can be a part of that thing, okay? When passion meets inspiration, obsession is born. And that's what I'm going for, that we as a people are like, no, we're obsessed with people coming to know Jesus, and we're obsessed with this thing called the church. So my job is to inspire you to the level that your passion and this idea of inspiration and doing this thing hit hard enough that you begin to be obsessed with it. Which leads me to 3. Like I said, the last 2 are not going to be as long, so everybody's like, whoo! The first one was a half hour. You still with me, Shonda? Come on, I like it. And the third thing that I see, that I aspire to have, that I value to create the culture in this team, in this force, distilled down into one word, is excellence. Excellence. When I left in 2015, me and Amanda were dorm pastors in Gwines Hall with Kirby. Kirby was there in Gwines. Me and Kirby go back to 2013. We were dorm pastors in Gwines Hall, and when we left to move to California, hush! You're messing me up. I'm talking to Winston. Cease. So they have at SAGU they have this walk that cuts through the center of campus, and it's paved in these little red bricks, and the whole thing is full of these little red bricks. And when we left there, our dorm and our team decided to purchase a brick for us, which is common from the university. You can do this, and you can have the brick engraved with a statement and put into the walk of bricks, and they'll put your name on it. Our dorm did that for us, and the phrase that they chose to put on the brick to say what they got from us in some way was driven by excellence. It has our name on it, and now it's sitting in Waxahachie, Texas. That is something that, when I think of excellence, I think of this term, make it better. I think of what Fletch even said earlier, curate the foxhole.
Improve your foxhole. The same.
Improve. I went with curate, but I like that. Improve your foxhole. Get better at your craft. The idea of passion coming in with this means I want to do it better tomorrow than I did today. Yeah. I want to hit a higher number if I'm being graded over there than I did over here. And in the pursuit of excellence, I'll be able to produce a life worth living. And that's what Scripture says, walk worthy of this calling. Live to this level, aspire and shoot for the best that you can, and tomorrow shoot for higher than that. And so there's all these words that come out from excellence to me that are kind of how-tos. This is where I start thinking of discipline. Discipline is life. Without discipline, nothing happens. Discipline is I lost it. Discipline is doing what you know you're supposed to do even when you don't want to do it. That's what discipline is. And the more disciplined you are, the more consistent you are, the more all of those things, they just kind of ball up into this level of excellence. And when I think about that, I think of different guys like Tom Brady, whether you love him or you hate him because he's insane. I think of a guy who, in his craft, in his role, you can't hate him at the end of the day because he is driven to be as good as he can be, and he's still being coached, and he's still eating to the proper level he should so that his health is at the level that he can perform at the highest. He's still shooting for number 7 on his Super Bowl list. He's 42, 43, whoever knows. This is a guy who cares about a football. to the level of this kind of obsessed lifestyle because he wants to do it really well. Why in the world do we not think about the church like that? That I want to do it to the best of my ability. I want to love people. I want to value people. I want to be passionate about this because I want to live an excellent life. I want to ascribe to something higher than myself. I think Jesus is excellent. I think that at the end of the day, if somebody told you, guess what? None of this is real. None of this matters, you're just a bunch of people who are duped. And you were like, well, I spent my entire life valuing other people higher than myself. I spent my entire life helping people who were in some ways marginalized, ostracized, who were low and hurt. I spent my entire life working to get better every day, to live to a level that other people would feel loved by me and through me because of who I was as a person. I spent my entire life building my character and my integrity to the level of a man named Jesus who was without sin, who knew no sin, who was perfect in every way, who never did one thing wrong. I spent my whole life trying to master it to the level of my God. You win. That's excellence. And in every way, shape, form, or fashion, that's a value for me. That's a value for this group. And that's what I see when I look down the road, 3 to 5 years. But because culture eats vision for lunch, it's not enough for me to just tell you that. And then us all stick it in our iPads and go on and move through life and be like, oh, that was a good talk. So we have to all hit these markers and we have to all demonstrate them. And it starts with me, and I understand that. To set the tone for all these things, to value people, to give of my attention, to give of my affirmation and my appreciation, so that you feel that, so that in turn you give it to others. It's my job to be passionate about this thing to the degree that I'll stop at nothing to make sure that we are all on the same page. And it's my job to demonstrate excellence to the level that we all want to reach that value. Next week, we're in part 2 of cultural values. That's enough for tonight. I'll hit you with the whole sauce next week. So, in the weeks and the months to come, as we're getting closer and closer to this thing, there will probably be ways that we demonstrate this, that we practice this, if you will. That we'll try to do this together as a team, as a unit, that I might challenge you to be a person who does those 3 things, at least right there, so that we can all behave and have a culture that says that's who we are. That's the most important thing to me, is who we are as a group, and those things are the perfect place for me to start tonight.